You talk about incentives a lot. Like I hear you say the word incentive over and over and over again. And once I keyed into the fact that you were saying it, I was like, oh man, this guy really likes the incentives in Bitcoin. And there's a small quote you had here that it says, this thing is going to win because of the incentive structure. Could you break down what you meant by that statement?
When you look at all the incentives that are wrapped around Bitcoin, they all point towards number go up, more adoption, network effect, and there's no entry point for a bad actor to come in. I think at this point, especially years ago, you can maybe make the argument that there was, because there wasn't enough size in the mining to stop a fork or whatever, right? But like, I think when you look at it now, everything is aligned in a direction that's just going to totally penetrate and take over the legacy financial rails, and more importantly, the unit of account for every single balance sheet on the planet, personal and corporate and government alike. So when you think about that, and it comes back to my days of studying Buffett, right? Like him and Charlie were huge on this idea of like, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. I'll show you what's about to happen. I can try to predict the future with a much higher probability when I understand what the actual incentives are for the participating people or entities in whatever system it is you're trying to understand. And so when I look at this, the miners make money, they're incentivized, right? Now you have this incentive to open channels on layer 2 with the Lightning Network, because if you're MasterCard or you're Visa, you're somebody who used to do traditional clearing, and now you can do it for quote unquote free. It's free. Your only cost is the cost of capital to lock coins up in the channel, is your opportunity cost. But if you're supplying this, so like if I'm Visa, let me just give you an example. Like if I'm Visa and I'm looking at my Rube Goldberg machine of clearing that currently exists, because there's a reason they charge 2.9% fees to every business that takes a swipe, right? There's a reason. It's because to have that clearing mechanism on top of that, it costs money, all the people in the cogs and that the process of all that taking place.
Bitcoin represents hope. We need Bitcoin. If we don't have Bitcoin, we're absolutely fucked. But what most people care about is the financial case for Bitcoin. And at the end of the day, Bitcoin is the most scarce asset that has ever existed. There has never been anything more scarce than Bitcoin, and the overwhelming majority of people have not realized that yet. So if you don't have a Bitcoin accumulation strategy, if you don't have a strategy that involves being able to hold your Bitcoin through chaos without it getting taken away from you, you're not going to have a fun time. You need to get on that right now, because as far as I'm concerned, every single other asset will trend to zero against Bitcoin long term. Whether that's the Chrysler building, whether that's your favorite shitcoin, whether that's Apple stock, it's all going to trend to zero in terms of Bitcoin. It'll still have value, but it'll have much less value when you compare it to the purchasing power of Bitcoin. So I think every single person, especially young people, should be focused on trying to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible and learn how to use it with privacy best practices. Otherwise, it could be taken away from you.